Greetings, learners. Today we're taking a deep dive into an idea that, well, it's fascinated thinkers for centuries. The inner wilderness.
Mm.
How do we find that profound peace,
Well,
clarity, purpose, not by going somewhere far away,
hmm
but actually by looking within?
right. The journey inward.
We're going to start with a name you probably know, Henry David Thoreau,
Right.
and his famous experiment at Walden Pond.
A classic starting point.
But this isn't just like a history lesson about a guy in the woods.
Yeah.
It's really about what his observations and honestly, insights from a whole stack of amazing spiritual texts reveal about the landscape inside us, our own minds, our spirits.
Exactly.
Think of this deep dive as maybe a shortcut, a way to see how different traditions, ancient Eastern stuff, Western mystics, how they all kind of point towards the power of self-reflection and living deliberately.
It's about finding freedom, really, but an internal kind.
Yeah, not about what you get, but what you uncover inside.
Indeed. And what's really fascinating here is that Thoreau, well, he famously went looking for solitude outside, right?
Yeah.
In nature.
Right, Walden Pond.
But that journey pretty quickly became a metaphor, really, for an internal one. He found out that the quiet of the woods wasn't so much about escaping the world.
Mhm.
It was more about entering this different, deeper world inside himself. And so many paths to wisdom, as we're going to see, they emphasize this. True insight isn't about getting more.
Or even searching outside for answers.
Exactly. It's about understanding what truly is. And often it involves letting go of the things that just aren't serving you, what isn't helping you reach your highest potential.
Right.
So our mission today really is to pull out the most important nuggets from all these different sources, the things that might help you have that kind of aha moment.
That flash of clarity.
Yeah, that moment where you suddenly see your own life, your choices, your path with totally new eyes. We're going to explore how Thoreau's, well, pretty simple life, when you combine it with these really profound spiritual teachings, how it can offer a powerful, practical framework, a way to reconnect to what some people call the divine, others might just call it our truest self.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Because for a lot of us, the idea of escaping the rat race, simplifying, it feels like a fantasy, doesn't it?
It really does.
We dream of less stress, more time, maybe a deeper connection to something, well, real. So what was Thoreau's actual practical reason for moving to Walden Pond back then? And what can we really learn from his approach?
Yeah.
It seems so radical, especially regarding basic needs.
Yeah, it was more than just camping out.
Definitely more than camping. It feels like a very conscious experiment.
It absolutely was a deeply intentional experiment. And Thoreau, he was surprisingly open about why he did it, his core motivation.
What did he say?
He put it very clearly. He said, "How to get my living honestly with freedom left for my proper pursuits was a question which vexed me."
Vexed him. That's a strong word.
It is. It implies he was really bothered, maybe even tormented, by the pressures of society back then. These pressures that basically demanded he spend most of his life just working to, as he put it, pay the rent of a larger and more luxurious box.
So it wasn't just about the cost of a house.
No, not at all. He was challenging the whole economic system, really. The system that seemed to trap people in this constant chase for stuff, for material things, leaving them hardly any time or energy for what he called his proper pursuits.
And what were those for him?
Well, for him, it was thinking deeply, reading, writing, really connecting with nature. He was fundamentally asking, what do we truly need to live? And what's just, societal expectation that basically steals our freedom and our sense of purpose.
Wow. So he was literally thinking about the minimum viable lifestyle. It's pretty different, not just from his time, but especially from now, right?
Wow.
Where the idea of a simple life feels almost impossible economically for so many.
It's a huge contrast.
He was designing his life around his values, wasn't he? Not just his bank account?
Precisely. That's the key. He consciously thought about how slight a shelter is absolutely necessary. He even kind of radically imagined a large box by the railroad, 6 feet long by 3 wide, as a possibility.
Like a shipping crate.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
As a potentially liberating option if someone was really hard pushed. He saw that kind of extreme simplicity not as suffering, but as a direct way to get free from society's demands.
Interesting.
And to illustrate his point about, hardy, unburdened living, he mentioned the Penobscot Indians. He noted how they lived in tents of thin cotton cloth, even when the snow was nearly a foot deep around them.
Okay.
His point wasn't really to romanticize hardship. It was to show that our basic human needs can actually be met with far less stuff, far less complexity than his society thought. His focus was all about shedding the unnecessary burdens.
The material stuff that weighs us down.
Exactly. To free up his most valuable resources. His time, his energy, his mental space, his spiritual focus for what really mattered to him.
And he didn't just think about it, he actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
Built his own cabin, right? For hardly any money.
He did. About $28, he calculated. And then he started farming the land. This practical, hands-on part was crucial to his whole philosophy. It wasn't just abstract thinking.
No, he got his hands dirty.
Absolutely. He described planting about 2.5 acres, chiefly with beans, but also some potatoes, corn, peas, turnips. And he did this before he even finished building the house.
Wow, priorities.
Right. He was immediately involved in sustaining himself directly. Now, the money he made from farming, it was pretty modest. He figured his farm expenses were around $14.72 the first season, and his income was only $4.50.
So he lost money, technically.
Monetarily, yes. But he felt he was doing better than any farmer in Concord did that year. Why? Because he valued the importance of a man's soul and of today more than the cash profit.
So that's the key takeaway then. It's not necessarily about everyone needing to farm beans.
Definitely not.
But it's about designing your life backwards from your purpose, understanding that how you live should serve the goal of truly living.
Exactly. The insight for us, for you listening, is maybe to audit our own labor, our jobs, our errands, our obligations, and ask, is this truly supporting my life with minimal distraction, leaving room for my deepest pursuits? What kind of income are we really after? Is it just money, or is it that invaluable currency of time, clarity, connection to our own soul?
That's a really practical way to think about it.
He even noted how simple things like cords of stumps from plowing gave him fuel. Driftwood from the pond met other needs. It was all about conscious, direct engagement with the source of his living, making sure every effort supported his main goal: reflection and writing.
It moves beyond just physical simplicity then. It's about deliberate choice, intentional living, not just getting rid of stuff, but choosing what's essential for your soul. And that makes me think about not just physical clutter, but mental clutter too. Thoreau wasn't only observing nature, he was watching humanity from a distance. How did he contrast his life in the woods with the village life? What bothered him about it? Because I have a feeling his observations might sound disturbingly familiar today.
Oh, they absolutely do. He seemed to foresee so many of our modern issues. He described the village as a kind of great newsroom.
A newsroom, like Gossip Central.
Exactly. A place of constant swirling information, rumor, gossip. He said people had a vast appetite for the news, this perpetual simmer and whisper of daily events, trivial stuff. He noticed it could actually produce a kind of numbness.
A numbness, how so?
A sort of insensibility to pain. It effectively dulled people's awareness, their consciousness, rather than sharpening it. He saw this constant external noise as preventing real self-awareness. It made people less sensitive to their own inner states, their deeper feelings.
Wow.
He painted this picture of people just sitting forever in public avenues without stirring, just absorbing news as if inhaling ether.
Inhaling ether. That's powerful. It anesthetizes them.
Exactly. It just distracted them, made them passive consumers of information rather than active participants in their own lives.
That is chillingly accurate. It sounds exactly like scrolling through social media or being glued to the 24/7 news cycle. That feeling of numbness after an hour. I definitely know that feeling.
It's remarkably prescient, isn't it?
So what was his suggested cure for this mental overload? Besides, just don't keep a house. Did he offer a way to deal with this constant hum?
Well, in the Brute Neighbors part of Walden, there's this hermit character who most people think is basically Thoreau himself.
Okay.
And this hermit asks a really relevant question. Why will men worry themselves so? He criticizes elaborate housekeeping, not just cleaning, but the endless chase for possessions, the upkeep, the social obligations.
The busyness.
Yes, the busyness. He questions the need to keep bright the devil's doorknobs and scour his tubs this bright day. It's a metaphor, right? For all the endless, often meaningless activity that just eats up our mental and emotional energy.
So what's the answer?
His radical suggestion: better not keep a house, say some hollow tree.
Okay, again, probably not literal advice.
Almost certainly not literal. It's a metaphor. A call to shed the burdens of too much stuff, too many meaningless social things that drain our energy and keep us from being truly present internally. The idea is that this constant engagement with the superficial keeps us from deeper thought, His antidote was conscious detachment.
Creating space.
Yes, creating enough space, mentally and physically, to actually hear yourself think, to feel what you feel.
So the external noise, the village buzz, was a huge barrier to inner clarity. It wasn't just about getting away, it was about actively seeking something deeper inside.
Exactly.
And this is where it gets really interesting, connecting his solitude outside to these universal spiritual ideas. Because his time at Walden, it wasn't just proving a point about economics, was it? It feels like a deeply spiritual quest.
It absolutely was. His physical move to Walden was ultimately a tool, a means to an end. And that end was a deeper, richer inner experience. He shifted from just observing society to observing nature, but he did it with this profoundly spiritual way of looking.
How so?
He was trying to understand himself and maybe the divine through nature, using the outside world like a mirror for inner truths. He genuinely believed the physical world held clues, symbols for the spiritual realm.
And he called himself a mystic, a transcendentalist, and a natural philosopher to boot.
So how did he see nature as more than just, plants and water? What was he actually looking for in the woods, in the pond? What did transcendentalist mean for how he saw things?
Right. As a transcendentalist, Thoreau fundamentally believed in the inherent goodness of people and nature. He saw nature as a direct expression, a manifestation of the divine, like a spiritual teacher that's accessible to everyone. Just pay attention.
He was heavily influenced by Ralph Waldo Emerson, another key transcendentalist, who famously said that every natural fact is a symbol of some spiritual fact. The idea that nature is at bottom spirit, and that spirit shapes and creates nature.
So the physical world is infused with spirit.
Exactly. For Thoreau, the external world wasn't just pretty scenery, it was like a living textbook, full of lessons for understanding deeper truths. He believed that if you observed the natural world really closely, you could tap into universal spiritual laws, gain insights into being human, into reality itself. He saw the world as just saturated with divine meaning, waiting for us to read it, experience it.
A living textbook. I like that.
Yeah.
Can you give us some examples? How did he actually read this textbook? How did he pull these deeper meanings from things that maybe you or I might just walk past?
Sure. Take his observation of fading flowers. He had this incredibly clear way of seeing what was called his limpid observation. He noticed that as flowers faded, their diminishing color actually enhanced the flower's sincerity, as if they had been pressing a case.
Wow, sincerity in a fading flower.
Yeah. He didn't just see decay, he saw a spiritual quality of honesty, of intensity in that temporary state. Like its fading beauty was revealing a deeper truth about life's impermanence.
That's a completely different way of looking.
It is. Or consider his description of water lilies at dawn. He wrote how whole fields of white blossoms seemed to flash open before me, like the unfolding of a banner. For him, it wasn't just flowers opening. It was this grand, almost sacred event, full of symbolic weight, like a revelation unfolding.
And the pond itself, Walden Pond, it feels like a central character in his writing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A source of reflection, literally and metaphorically.
Absolutely. The pond was his main classroom, his mirror. He described it in August, calm, full of light and reflections, becoming like a lower heaven itself. He saw the water's transparency as being like the transparency of truth, reflecting the divine. And what's really interesting is his description of the first ice forming on the pond, hard, dark, and transparent. He said it offered the best opportunity for examining the bottom. And he noted you could see your own face reflected in the bubbles trapped under the ice.
Wow. So nature provides a way to see yourself.
That's the metaphor, exactly. Nature, in its purest form, gives us this chance for deep self-reflection. It lets us see ourselves, our own truths, mirrored in the natural world.
Even in things that aren't traditionally beautiful. Like, did he find meaning in, say, owls hooting?
Oh, definitely. Even things that might seem unsettling. He heard the dismal scream of screech owls, but to him it wasn't just noise. He called it the dark and tearful side of music, the regrets and sighs that would fain be sung.
That's poetic.
He even imagined them as spirits of fallen souls expiating their sins. So for Thoreau, nature was this vast moral and spiritual landscape packed with symbols filled with divine presence. Every ripple, every fading flower, every sound in the night held a lesson, a reflection of bigger spiritual realities, just waiting for a conscious, open mind to interpret them. He was constantly looking for the spiritual in the material.
The eternal in the everyday. That's beautiful. It makes you wonder, is this idea, nature as a spiritual guide, is that unique to Thoreau and the Transcendentalists? Or do we see this in other traditions, too? Is it more universal?
Oh, it's remarkably universal. It's fascinating how this perspective echoes across so many different spiritual paths. It really shows a convergence of wisdom.
Like where else?
Well, take A Course in Miracles, for example. It teaches that the Holy Spirit sees the world as a teaching device for bringing you home.
A teaching device.
Yeah. It's not about escaping the world or saying it isn't real, but about reinterpreting it, seeing it through a different lens. The Course encourages you to look as the Holy Spirit looks and understand as He understands. It suggests that if you change how you perceive your everyday experiences, you can uncover deeper meaning and purpose, which ultimately leads you back to your true spiritual home, that state of wholeness and peace.
So it's like Thoreau actively looking for meaning in nature. It's about changing your perception.
Exactly. It's less about the world itself changing and more about the lens you're using to view it. Our perception is what gives it meaning, sacred or otherwise.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if you look at ancient Indian texts like the Bhagavad Gita, you find a very similar idea. It speaks of Lord Kellanton as the original cause of the material manifestation and says everything is resting on him.
So everything comes from the divine.
That's the teaching. The whole material world, everything in it, is seen as an emanation of the divine. And if you understand this deep interconnectedness that the divine is woven into everything, then you can potentially become transcendental to these three modes of material nature.
The three modes, what are those?
They're called the gunas, goodness, passion, and ignorance. They're seen as the qualities that shape our experience in the material world, often pulling us into cycles of desire, attachment, illusion.
Right.
So by seeing the divine in everything, the idea is you can free yourself from being totally defined by these ups and downs and instead become established in the self, resting in your true, unchanging essence. It teaches that the material world isn't separate from the divine. It is its manifestation.
That's a really powerful feeling of unity. Like the divine is literally everywhere. And I remember, wasn't it Augustine in Western thought who talked about something similar? God being like inherent in our existence.
Absolutely. In his Confessions, Augustine expresses this profound unity. He asks something like, I wouldn't exist, my God. I wouldn't exist at all unless you existed in me. Or maybe it's that I wouldn't exist unless I existed in you, from whom, through whom, in whom everything exists.
Right.
It captures that feeling of God's omnipresence perfectly, his realization that heaven and earth are filled with me. It shows that the divine isn't just out there in nature or far away in heaven, but intimately within us and sustaining everything. It's a core idea in many mystical traditions. The divine and creation aren't separate.
Okay.
And even bringing it into, say, psychology and experience, William James, in the Varieties of Religious Experience, he studied these things. He documented cases where people had mystical moments. He talks about how the vivified face of the world can suddenly appear, adding this super sensuous meaning to just ordinary life. People feel this intimate communion with the divine. They feel God is here, like they're immersed in the infinite ocean of God.
So the mundane becomes sacred, just like that.
Exactly. It's like a spontaneous shift in perception that reveals the divine underlying everyday life.
Wow.
Very similar to how Thoreau's deliberate way of looking transformed his experience of Walden. It's about seeing the more in the ordinary.
It's clear this connection to the world, seeing the divine in it, runs deep across so many different ways of thinking. But Thoreau's retreat, it wasn't just about finding God in a flower. It was also about finding quiet, right? Escaping that newsroom village.
Yes, the silence was crucial.
So in our world today, which is incredibly loud, always on, notifications pinging constantly, how do we find that essential inner silence he was looking for? It feels almost impossible sometimes, doesn't it?
It really can feel that way. We're just bombarded. But, you know, the Untethered Soul offers a really interesting perspective on this. It says our minds are usually filled with this incessant chatter.
Tell me about it.
Right. And it's not just external noise. It's our own internal voice, our judgments, worries, that constant stream of thoughts. The path to freedom, according to this book, isn't necessarily trying to force that chatter to stop. That usually doesn't work anyway.
Yeah, try telling your brain to shut up. Good luck.
Exactly. Instead, it's about learning to step back and view it objectively. It's about realizing you are the one who hears the voice.
Ah, okay, so you're not the voice itself.
Precisely. This shifts your perspective. You stop being identified with every single thought, every emotion, every sensation. You become the pure sense of awareness that simply observes all this internal stuff as it comes and goes.
So not stopping the thoughts, which feels impossible, but changing my relationship to them, becoming the witness instead of getting caught up in the noise inside my head. That sounds liberating, like maybe regaining some control.
It is incredibly liberating. Imagine yourself as a witness, like watching clouds pass in the sky. You watch your thoughts, your emotions, your physical sensations. As the text says, the object comes and goes, and the consciousness watches it come and go. The consciousness experiences the creation of thoughts and emotions, and it has the clarity to see where they came from. So you're not the thoughts, you're the awareness behind them, watching them arise and fade.
Okay.
This practice helps you avoid getting lost in the mind's drama. You cultivate this centered place inside that stays steady even when your internal weather is shifting. It's a way to reclaim your inner space from that constant mental activity, whether it's your own thoughts or stuff coming from outside. You create an inner sanctuary of quiet, even when the world is noisy.
An inner sanctuary.
And this idea, this non-intellectual direct knowing that kind of bypasses all the mental chatter, it's echoed really beautifully in The Cloud of Unknowing.
Oh, yeah, the medieval text.
That's the one. Written for people living a contemplative life. It describes its core practice as the shortest work of all that man may imagine. Super quick, like an atom of time, the smallest possible moment.
So how does it work?
It teaches that God is incomprehensible to all created knowledgeable powers, meaning our intellect, our reason, our analytical mind can't grasp God fully.
Right.
But God is all comprehensible to the full by the loving power of the soul. It's not about understanding with your brain. It's a direct heart-centered connection, an intuition, an intimate knowing that completely bypasses the busy mind.
So it suggests a deep inner silence reached not by trying harder, but by shifting attention.
Exactly. Shifting attention to a different, deeper part of ourselves where that true connection happens.
These inner practices, they sound intense, especially bypassing the intellect for this loving power. What about the deeper stuff, like confronting the uncomfortable feelings inside or that feeling of not being good enough that so many of us seem to carry? It sounds like it could get pretty challenging.
Oh, they absolutely delve into very deep layers. It often takes real courage. St. John of the Cross, in his classic mystical text, Dark Night of the Soul, talks about a necessary purging and annihilating its natural light.
Purging and annihilating, that sounds harsh.
It can feel that way. He says it's necessary for our understanding to unite with divine light. And it's not always gentle. It can involve a profound and horrible and most painful darkness, a time of aridity and constraint, where even our usual spiritual feelings or comforts dry up.
So everything familiar gets stripped away.
Essentially, yes. Our ordinary ways of seeing and feeling, even our sense of comfort in prayer or meditation, can be taken away. But St. John says it's precisely through this deep darkness that the soul can receive these rare and sublime touches of divine love. It becomes alien and remote from common sense, so it can be informed with the divine.
So it's not something you do, it's something that happens to you.
For St. John, yes, it's a passive infusion from God. A radical purification that makes the soul ready for a much deeper union, where our human understanding gives way to divine knowing. Painful, yes, but ultimately profoundly transformative.
Wow. A radical stripping away, like a crucible. It's not about getting more, but letting go of everything, even spiritual comforts, to make space for something totally new.
Exactly. And you see a parallel, though perhaps described differently, in St. Teresa of Avila's interior castle. She talks about the soul having an interior light, being made in God's image. But often, she says, we don't prize our souls enough. We don't realize the great secrets which they contain.
We underestimate ourselves.
In a spiritual sense, yes. She speaks of being delectably wounded by God.
Delectably wounded. That sounds paradoxical.
It does. It's not a physical wound, but a great grief, though a sweet and delectable one. It signifies God's presence, and it creates this growing, almost insatiable desire for him. The more the soul learns about God's greatness, the more her love for him grows. The sweet wound of love shows that God is actively drawing the soul deeper, revealing its inherent value and its huge capacity for divine love. It's about discovering the spiritual wealth we already have, hidden under layers of distraction and forgetting ourselves.
Okay, so there's the intense mystical path. What about something more, maybe contemporary or practical, for dealing with difficult inner states?
Right. For a more modern take on this internal purging or confronting difficult feelings, radical acceptance offers really profound practical guidance. It tackles that pervasive feeling, that trance of unworthiness, head on.
That feeling that something is wrong with me.
Exactly. The book highlights how our habitual thoughts and feelings often create and reinforce this core sense of being flawed or incomplete. But instead of fighting these difficult states, whether it's intense anger, anxiety, cruel thoughts, despair, it suggests offering forgiveness directly to each experience.
Forgiveness. To anxiety.
Yes, it means giving permission to our inner life to be as it is, rather than constantly resisting it or judging it.
So you accept the uncomfortable feelings. Instead of trying to push them away or fix them,
Yeah.
that seems incredibly counterintuitive. We're basically taught to suppress or change anything we don't like about ourselves.
It is counterintuitive, but it's incredibly powerful. By just observing these experiences, seeing them as energy passing through and offering this radical acceptance, we create this warmth and softness inside.
Okay.
And that allows the emotions to actually unfold and change naturally. They don't get stuck or ramped up because we're fighting them. It's about letting go of that internal war against our own reality, viewing pain as energy that just needs to pass through, rather than something that defines us or something we have to crush. This practice helps us stop resisting our inner life. And that allows for real transformation, a deeper connection to our true self, free from all that self-blame and judgment. It turns the inner wilderness from a scary place into a space of liberation.
So whether it's the intense dark night, the sweet wound of divine love, or this practice of radical acceptance, it all comes down to courageously facing what's inside us. Not necessarily to fix it, but to truly see it, embrace it, and let it transform us.
That's a great summary.
Which brings me to the next logical question. How does this deep dive inward, this cultivating awareness and acceptance, how does it actually translate into making deliberate, meaningful choices in our everyday lives? How do we find our true purpose through this? How do we take these inner shifts and actually, live them out in the world?
Ah, yes. The crucial bridge. Connecting the inner landscape to our outer actions. It starts, according to A Course in Miracles, with a really profound decision of purpose. The text says that when you hear the will of your Father, God is to know your own. It means you're aligning your deepest, most authentic desires with a higher divine truth. It's not about following external rules. It's about discovering what you genuinely want to be and do when you're not driven by ego, fear, or what society expects.
So less about striving, more about aligning.
Exactly. The Course suggests give over every plan you have made for your salvation in exchange for God's, finding real peace and purpose in that surrender. This shift frees us from our self-made limitations and opens us up to being guided by a deeper wisdom. Our purpose then starts to unfold organically from within, instead of being something we try to manufacture on the outside.
That's a massive shift from how we usually operate, making detailed plans, aiming for specific outcomes, trying to force things. It sounds like a radical act of trust, surrendering to a bigger current instead of fighting it.
It is indeed. And this resonates strongly with a message from Conversations with God. Go ahead and do what you really love to do nothing else.
Wow, really? Do nothing else.
Now, this isn't just a license for irresponsibility, it's a deep call to authenticity. The book posits that the soul's decision precedes the body's action in a highly conscious person. Meaning that truly deliberate living isn't about actions dictated by circumstance or duty. It's about inner choices, authentic expression, where what you do flows naturally from who you are at your core. From this viewpoint, life's events aren't random. They're opportunities for you to decide and be who you are.
So life is constantly asking us who we want to be.
In a way, yes. It emphasizes intentionality, authentic expression. It urges us to see that our inner state actually creates our outer reality, and our purpose comes from our being, not just our doing. It's about becoming, more than just accomplishing.
Becoming.
And look at the Dhammapada, a foundational Buddhist text. It also lays out a very deliberate path towards inner freedom and contentment, emphasizing conscious choice. It says, a learner shall conquer this earth and the realm of yama, the realm of suffering or death, and that detachment is the best of dhammas, or principles.
Detachment again.
Sure.
Not indifference, but freedom from clinging.
Exactly. And it doesn't suggest chaos. It offers a structured, mindful approach, the Noble Eightfold Path. This is for achieving purity of vision and the allaying of misery.
Right understanding, right thought.
Right speech.
Yeah.
Right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. It's a systematic, deliberate way to inner freedom, moving away from being constantly insatiate in sensual pleasures towards genuine inner peace. It's about conscious, disciplined action rooted in deep insight, very much like Thoreau's simple life was a deliberate choice to align with his purpose.
Okay, so whether it's surrender, doing what you love, or following the Eightfold Path, there's this consistent call for intentionality. Aligning our outer life with inner wisdom. What's the end game then? Is it like you reach enlightenment and you're done, a static state? Or is it more of a continuous journey?
Oh, it's definitely an ongoing journey, a continuous unfolding, not a fixed destination. The untethered soul really speaks to this. It aims for a state in which you never have any more stress, tension, or problems for the rest of your life.
That's nice, Al.
Well, it's not by making the outside world perfect. It's by realizing that life is giving you a gift through its constant flow of events. You learn to stop resisting reality. You start seeing things that used to look like stressful problems as actually being stepping stones on your spiritual journey.
Turning problems into lessons.
Exactly. The book says the truly awakened person, if you ask them how they'd lived their last week, they'd say not a thing would change inside of them. They would live exactly the same way as they're living now.
Wow. That signifies such peace.
It signifies living fully, without compromise, accepting and embracing every moment because your inner state is harmonious with whatever is happening outside.
That's an incredible level of inner peace and acceptance.
Yeah.
Facing the end with no regrets. Just presence. A real integration of inner and outer worlds.
It truly is. And this idea is strongly reinforced in The Road Less Traveled. It suggests that the healing of the spirit has not been completed until openness to challenge becomes a way of life.
Openness to challenge.
Not seeking problems, but meeting life's difficulties with curiosity, with an open heart, seeing them as chances to grow. Love itself is seen as the free exercise of choice, not dependency.
Yeah.
The book even says any genuinely loving relationship is one of mutual psychotherapy.
Huh. Interesting.
It highlights that spiritual growth isn't a solo mission. It's continuous, unfolding through conscious interaction, through the challenges and reflections we get from others, and through developing an ever-increasing capacity to love. It's active, dynamic.
Okay. And the Bhagavad Gita, what's the outcome there?
The path leads to liberation in the Supreme. How? By being happy from within, actively enjoying within, and aiming within. It describes this internal contentment, this self-sufficiency, as the real fruit of deliberate living and self-realization. Your joy, your purpose comes from your core, unshaken by external ups and downs because its source is inside.
Happy from within.
And finally, William James, in The Varieties of Religious Experience, he sums up this whole journey as a kind of glorious transformation. A shift into a radically new, substantial nature, moving from tenseness, self-responsibility, and worry to equanimity, receptivity, and peace.
It's total shift.
Yes. He calls it a conversion into a new man, a new creature, achieving a sort of cosmic consciousness, feeling immersed in that infinite ocean of God. It's not just changing beliefs, it's a fundamental change in being, a deep, lasting internal shift that affects everything, revealing interconnectedness and profound peace.
Wow. So the inner wilderness, it's not just a place you go to escape. It's this dynamic, transformative space inside us where we learn to live authentically, deliberately connected to something much bigger than ourselves. And it's always evolving. We're always growing.
Beautifully put. That's the essence of it.
We started this deep dive inspired by Thoreau's pretty bold experiment in simplicity out at Walden Pond. And we've really journeyed through an amazing landscape of spiritual wisdom, haven't we? From so many different places.
We really have.
From Thoreau, seeing nature as this spiritual mirror, reflecting the divine, reflecting ourselves, to these deep calls across traditions for inner silence, for self-forgiveness, for deliberate action, whether Eastern philosophy or Western mysticism. The message feels remarkably consistent.
It really does.
The path to a rich, meaningful, connected life. It often begins right here, inside.
Yeah.
Cultivating that inner wilderness, letting it change how you experience everything.
Absolutely. And what's truly fascinating is that consistent invitation across all these teachings. Cultivate deeper awareness.
Yeah.
Recognize your true nature, the part of you that's beyond the ego, beyond all the societal noise and distractions.
Getting back to that core self.
Yes.
Yeah.
Returning to that essential awareness and letting that guide your life. You know, Conversations with God puts it powerfully. Those who have ears to hear, let them listen. Which really brings up a crucial question for you listening right now. How do you choose to define and maybe cultivate your own inner wilderness? What amazing truths might it reveal if you actually committed to exploring it? If you gave it the time, the presence it deserves?
Yeah, what would shift?
What would really shift in your life if you were willing to step back from all the noise just for a bit and truly try to live fully without compromise, like we heard from the untethered soul, starting right now, today?
It's not a destination then.
Not at all. This journey isn't about arriving somewhere. It's a continuous, deliberate unfolding, a profound journey into the most essential part of who you really are.